Alright, Thursday evening just after work, and we're going to go and exchange the TR6 for the TR3, and we're going to move a few cars around while we're up there. We're going to probably move one of the Capris closer to the door and put the TR6 behind it, as the Capri is the 50th anniversary car this year at, or one of the 50th anniversary cars this year at British Car Day. So that car will be going to British Car Day in the near future. That's September the 15th. So it needs to come out, needs a little exhaust leak fixed and the car to be detailed. So the TR6 will go behind it, Capri will go in front, and the TR3, the 60 TR3, will come home. Alright, Friday, August the 23rd, and we got a little bike project going on today. We're going to put the bags back on the bike. I don't normally run with the bags, but I've got a bit of a trip going on Sunday this weekend, so I figured I'd put the bags on just so I can carry a bit of crap with me. So in order to do that, I wanted to replace out the hardware that was on the bags. I bought these bags secondhand, and they had sort of crappy old rusty hardware on there. Oversized, actually the bolts were way too long, so I've gone out and bought some stainless with some acorn nuts, because the nuts are visible on the outside, so I thought I'd get it to look a little better and be a little bit more functional. So we've invested in some stainless hardware. So we'll go ahead and we'll put those bags on, then we'll probably give the bike a quick clean. White walls are looking a little yellowish around the edges, and oiled the chain up last week, so we've got a little oil residue on the side walls. So anyway, we'll do a little cleanup while we're out here as well, maybe give it a coat of wax. Beautiful day out today, perfect day for working outside. I forgot to mention that I brought home the 60 TR3A last night. I swapped it out with the TR6. The TR6 has been out to 3 or 4 shows now, so I figured I'd swap it out for the TR3 and drive this for a bit and take it to a couple shows, and then we'll go pick up the TR6 at the end of September, because we have a big trip coming up to St. Louis in October in the TR6 for the six-pack car club. So that's the plan anyway. So the bags are on the bike, and I just wanted to take you a quick shot of the hardware that's on there, and you can probably understand why I want to swap those out. Those are pretty ugly looking, so we'll try and make it look a little bit better anyway with that new stainless hardware and the acorn nuts. So we'll go ahead and we'll start swapping it out. Alright guys, the right hand rear bag is now attached with the new hardware, and I think you can see the difference. It's 100% better than the left rear. So it's a little investment to make it look a little bit better. And stainless steel, so I won't get any rust hopefully. Probably paint those brackets over the winter time. There's a little bit of rust on the bottom corner, so we'll clean those up over the winter and reinstall them. But it looks good, so we'll continue on to the left hand side. Alright guys, bags are now on, and I'm much happier with that acorn nut look. Looks a lot cleaner than it did. So still like the bags off the bike better. I like the bike to be a little more stripped down look, so I'd rather run without the windscreen and the bags, but it's obviously a lot more functional with bags and windscreen on. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll give her a good wax, give her a good clean, scrub those wide white walls, get that little brown tinge off them, and we'll be ready to go for Sunday. Morning guys, Tush coming at you. Saturday, August 24th, just after 11 a.m. Absolutely stunning day out today. Such a nice day that I had to take the TR3 out for a rip this morning. Went for about a half-hour drive. It's always nice to run into another Triumph on the road when you're out just cruising around. I ran into a TR6, had a chance to say hello. Anyway, it is a perfect day to drive or to be out in the garage working. It's cool. It's only about 20 degrees Celsius at the moment. It's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, just a little over 70 degrees. And humidity's fine, so I think we'll spend a little bit of time in the garage while I've got it today. And we'll get this garage cleaned up. I've just been sort of tossing stuff in here from car shows. I've been doing a little cleaning here and there, and I've got stuff that I need to throw away and organize a little bit. And I think what we'll do is we'll get the garage cleaned up and organized in order to get working back on the TR250. I'm going to have a little bit of time this week, it looks like. So we will work on the 250 this week. So we'll get it uncovered and we'll get tools put away. I think I've just crammed a whole bunch of junk on the inside of this thing too. So yeah, all my sanding stuff. So we'll probably get that cleaned up and organized a little bit better in order to get out here and start working back on this thing for at least the next week before I get back into a heavy travel schedule. So that's what we're going to do today. Tomorrow I've got my bike ride planned, my motorcycle ride to Bobcaygeon, Ontario, going for fish and chips. So I'm looking forward to that. It's supposed to be about the same kind of day tomorrow as it is today, so it's going to be absolutely perfect weather for riding a bike. Anyway, we'll take advantage of the weather while we can. Hey, good morning guys, Tush coming back at you. Monday, August 26th, just coming up to 10:30. And another beautiful day outside today. I've got a few days off work, so we're going to play around with cars a little bit. I do have a car show to go to tonight. It's a not necessarily a British car show, but it's a car show being held by the Thornhill Cruisers. It's about a 30-minute drive away from me. Mostly muscle cars, some antiques, but very little British. Anyway, they've invited the British to come to their show tonight, so we're going to go to that show tonight. So that will mean that I need to clean this car up a little bit. I've had some issues with this one hose popping off. This bypass hose here. It's not wasn't clamping very well up to the where this thermostat is, so I've reclamped it, reconnected it, so hopefully that won't pop off again. But when it did pop off, it created a little bit of coolant loss, so I've got some coolant to clean up, and it's starting to corrode my aluminum. So we're going to pop that valve cover off, and we'll clean up the radiator, and it looks like the carbs need a bit of a polish. So we'll just give this engine bay a general cleaning and get rid of the residual effects of that coolant leak under the bonnet. So that's what we're going to do this morning, for a little while at least anyway. I did go out and pick up some new aluminum polish this morning. I like this Mother's Mag and aluminum polish, works well. So we'll do that this morning, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do this afternoon before we head out to the show. Probably going to head to the show between 4 and 5 p.m. They want us there fairly early. The show goes to about 8, so should be a nice night. Weather looks good, and I think Les may tag along for the drive, but we'll see. That's it for now. We'll come back when we got this detailed a bit more. All right, now we got it all cleaned up. It's time to get it all messed up. Heading out for a little drive. Beautiful day for a drive. Couldn't be any better. Okay, we made it to the Woodbridge Cruisers event, and I'm going to apologize in advance for the wind noise. It is quite windy tonight. It was kind of an exciting drive to get here. Very windy. Should have brought my goggles with me. Anyway, got myself in the TR3, got Les, quite a few MGBs out, and a beautiful red TR6. MGA. Le Mans bringing back some memories. I had a 72 Le Mans Sport convertible. Mach 1. Nice Beaumont. Alright guys, it's Wednesday the 28th and I've got a bit of time to get back on the TR250 project, so we're going to pick up where we left off, and that was working on the driver's side door. And I was just finishing up some filler work prior to getting this into epoxy primer, and I got a little bit more work to do there, a little bit more, it's pretty dark, a little more filler work to do there around that handle location, and I wanted to do some filler work here where I'd put a new patch of metal in, so I think I'll just do a little quick skim of filler here just to clean this area up a little bit. I know that's really dark and it's hard for you to see, but that's pretty much all I'm going to do on this door before I get it back into epoxy. I've already scratched up the inside here, as you can see. I'm not going to go down to bare metal, it's not required, so I'll probably just give this another quick scratch with 80 grit, and then we'll get into epoxy once we get it all grease and wax removed. Get all the excess Bondo sort of plunked off of it, and there's that corner that I repaired. I think the last video I did was repairing this corner, so it doesn't look too bad. Anyway, that's what we're up to today, so we're going to break out some Bondo and do a little sanding. Alright, no time like the present. We're going to get the top at least into black epoxy primer, and then maybe this afternoon we can get out here and flip it over and get the reverse done. I did get that those two areas done. Doesn't look too bad. It looks a little better. So, like I said, we'll mix up some black epoxy primer, and we will get this shot. It's a perfect day actually for painting. Just over, it's probably about 75 degrees. About 20, I don't know, 23, 24 degrees Celsius out here, and humidity is about 30%, so not too bad. So again, we're going to get the black epoxy primer out. We'll give this a quick couple coats. Alright guys, got the top side of the door epoxied black. And good thing about black epoxy is you can really see where you missed as far as the bodywork is concerned. And the reason I do I do some of the basic bodywork, you know, the larger stuff below the epoxy, then I epoxy, and then I go back. And I find that the black epoxy helps me to see where I've missed some of the more minor imperfections. And you can see some here, for example. There's some small dents under where the trim piece goes on the door. So those are hard to see and hard to feel. Now some of this is going to be taken care of as well. On the next coat for me, I'll be doing a polyester primer on top of this, which will give me a little bit more smoothness to the door as well. But like I said, I like to do the body filler first to get rid of the larger dents, then come back and do some sort of finish work on top of that before we seal it all again in a sealer coat of epoxy. So anyway, we're going to flip this door over. We'll probably let it dry for a little bit longer. It's still a little bit wet on this edge, so I think we'll wait for a little bit, but we'll flip it over. We'll give that a quick scrub down with 180 grit on the back side, probably just a gray scrubby. And then we'll shoot it with black epoxy on the underside of the door and let that dry overnight. Alright guys, just coming up to about 4 p.m. and the exterior and interior of the driver's side doors now in epoxy primer. So we're happy about that. We don't have to worry about it flash rusting now. We've got some protection on it. So we'll now move on to the passenger side panels. So we've got to do both fenders and the door on the passenger side. So we'll probably start working on those later this evening, or probably on Friday. We've got a bit of time to work on it on Friday, so I'll probably get out here on Friday if it's a nice day, and we'll start the bodywork process and try to get some of those parts into epoxy primer as well. Hey, good morning everybody. Friday, August the 30th. Sorry for the noise. And we got a bit of a do-over this morning. I was a little impatient on my drying on the epoxy primer, and it ended up sticking to my my stands. So I'm going to have to sand it back down this morning and respray the top side of this. So we've got the DA out with 180 grit on it, and we'll give it a quick scuff up, and we'll respray it with a black epoxy before we move on to another part of the car. Like I mentioned, we have the fenders and the door to do on the passenger side, so hopefully we'll get into getting those into epoxy today as well. Let's do this one first. Okay, we've got the door resprayed. It's a little stripy, but anyway, it's looking better than it did. So I think what we'll do is move on to the, as I've mentioned, we start with the driver's side front fender. Shouldn't need a lot of body work. It was a good condition fender when I got it, so let's pull that off and have a look. Okay, passenger side fender is off, and you can see that I've got a little cleanup to do here on the inside, a little bit of surface rust, and we have some more undercoating to remove. So anyway, like I said, this fender's in extremely good condition. This is an all original fender from California, so as you can see, it's in pretty good shape. So we'll go ahead and we'll break out the heat gun, and we'll move the undercoating, and we'll get the flat disc out, and we'll remove this surface rust, and then we'll flip it over and do a little bit of body work off. I have to weld up the seam on the duct for the wing vents, so I'll weld that up and grind that down, and we should be good to go. Also remove all these spire nuts from the fenders as well before we go ahead and put this into epoxy primer. Alright, nothing too exciting. All stuff that's got to be done. Alright guys, a quick look at the first pass of cleaning up this front passenger side fender, and it's looking not too bad. I just scraped it down with a heat gun and a scraper, and hit it with a little bit of a wire wheel. Got most of it off. Still have a little bit of residue to get off, and we'll clean that up. But the first thing I wanted to do was to now go back and weld up this seam. So we've got the welder out. We'll weld this up before we continue on with the cleanup. So that's what the plan is. I just wanted to give you a quick shot of that before I proceed. Alright, we've completed the welding and ground that down on the vent opening. We've got some paint to remove on the fender still. See, we've got quite a bit of a dent here that we've got to take care of once we get to the body filler stage. So we've got pretty much the wheel arch to complete. A little bit of paint here on the bottom of the sill. A little bit on the nose here. We also need to probably take a bit of an angle grinder to the flange on the inside. It's a little rusty. So we still have quite a bit of prep to do on this fender before we get into black epoxy. Thought I'd give you a quick shot of that. Yeah, the interior of the fender is pretty much as clean as it's going to get. We're not going to go too crazy, but that's ready for epoxy primer now. Just needs to be wiped down with grease and wax remover, and my final wipe is usually some rubbing alcohol, so we'll do that when we're ready to do that. But I think we'll flip it over now, and we'll finish up the front side, do a little Bondo work, and like I mentioned, we'll get it into epoxy primer. Alright, just starting the first coat of body work. So we'll just try to knock out the big stuff and worry about the little stuff later. I got to do a little cleanup over there before that dries too hard. So we'll clean up that Bondo, let the rest of this dry, then we'll break out the sanding blocks, sand this down a bit, and move on from there. We definitely need another coat of filler here. It's still a little shallow, but I didn't want to, obviously you don't want to build it up as high as you can right at the beginning. You want several thinner coats. So we'll build that up a little bit more after we sand it down a little bit and see where we're at. Okay, body work's done, and we're just about to get it into epoxy, so we're just going to mix the epoxy up and give her a quick couple coats, and we'll let this dry, and then we'll flip it over probably tomorrow and do the interior piece, so we don't have the same problem with the fender sticking to the work surface like we did with the door. So we'll be a little bit more careful. We'll learn from our mistakes on the previous project, and we'll move forward. So just having a quick look at the passenger side front fender before I shut it down for the night. It's almost dry, which is good. Well, it's actually dry, but I still got to be careful handling it. And it's not bad. There's a little dent in the nose here that I missed, and there's a couple really tiny dents in the main body of the panel, somewhere around here and around here. But other than that, it actually looks pretty good. So looks like my repairs didn't turn out too bad where I did the Bondo. So I think we'll get away without too much more body work on this panel, which is good. So I think we'll wait another hour or so. It's just about 8 o'clock in the evening, and probably wait for another hour or so before I bring the car in, and I can put this somewhere probably over with the other fenders. I'll have to stand them up on end, and like I said, we'll probably try to get out here tomorrow and spray the back side of this fender. I believe those fenders also need to be sprayed on the backside, so I might be able to do it all in one shot. And we might be able to pull the door off and maybe spray the front side of the door. So we're making a little bit of progress on the epoxy priming anyway. So that's a good thing. Anyway, that's it for tonight. We'll hopefully get it back out here tomorrow for at least a little while. See you then. Also, one last thing before I go. At some point I'm going to have to mark out and cut the holes for the side marker lights. This was a TR4 fender that didn't have the side markers, nor did it have the metal trim strips as well. So I'll have to relocate or find the locations for the holes to hold the rivets on for the strips. And like I said, I'll have to punch the holes like this. If I take a look at the driver's side fender over here, this is what I'm talking about. This is an original TR250 fender. So there are the 3 holes that I need to punch, along with all the holes required for the rivets that will hold that trim strip on. So we got to figure that out at some point as well before we get too much further. Obviously before we put any paint on it, those will have to be drilled. I'm not going to drill them after I paint it. So we'll figure out the locations for those at some point and do what we need to do. Alright, that's it. Alright, good morning. Tush coming at you. Saturday, August 31st, and just after 10 a.m. Hard to believe it's the last day of August. Summer has gone by so fast this year. Anyway, beautiful day out today. Perfect temperature for working out in the garage. We are back on the TR250 fenders this morning. Obviously the interior still need to be epoxy primed. So that's the one I was working on yesterday, and this is the one I was working on a few weeks ago. The black stuff is rust converter, so it's been rust converted. It does need to be cleaned up a little bit. I still got some undercoating here to remove. So I think we'll do that. We'll clean this up a little bit more this morning before we put this into epoxy primer. Not too worried too much. This one's had a bottom put on the fender, and I'm not too much concerned about cleaning up this bead of weld. It doesn't look too bad anyway. So we'll probably just leave that. We'll scuff up this E-coat and clean this fender up a little bit. And then, like I said, we'll get ready to put it into black epoxy. I do have one more fender. I've got the rear fender from the driver's side. The interior needs to go into epoxy, but we'll concentrate on these first. I can't be out here all day today. I've got a few hours to be out here, so we'll see how this goes before we tackle that rear fender. The goal is to get these 2 done today. Anything extra will be just bonus. So we'll break out the wire wheel, see if we can remove some of this undercoating. This is just loose undercoating. I'll probably grab the heat gun as well and the scraper like we did yesterday, and we'll go to town. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, the fenders are about as clean as they're going to get, so we're ready to put them into black epoxy. So the intent on this after the epoxy is we're going to put it into truck bed liner on the interior panels. That's what I've done on my 60 TR3 and my 73 TR6, and it's turned out really well. So that's what we're going to do for this project. If it works for the other 2, it's definitely going to work for this one. So anyway, we'll waste no more time, and we'll mix up some epoxy and go ahead and shoot this. I was thinking about doing some body work on this panel here. A little bit of a weld line, but you know what? I'm just going to leave it. I don't think it's going to be visible. So we'll just leave it and deal with it if it is visible. Alright, just coming up to 2:30, and the fenders turned out well. So I'm happy with that. So I think what we're going to do for some of the rest of the afternoon is it's such a nice day out. I think we're going to take the 60 TR3 out for a spin. We'll peel that tonneau cover back, and we'll get in the wind. Say hello, Leslie.
Hello, Leslie.
Where are we going?
We're going to go look at the Triumph Stag.
Who wants a Stag?
Les does.
That's an old man's car.
It's okay, I'm an old man, Dave. Can't you admit you're an old man?
Nope, not yet.
No. Well, I'm not worried. It's got a V8 to push me around, so I'm okay.
Okay, stop cleaning and start driving.
Thanks, Dave.
I haven't got all day.
Do I look like your helper?
No, I'm your helper.
You just be quiet.
Alright, we're at the storage location where this Stag is. Here it is. Just stored outside, and there's an old MG here beside it. So I guess this was a car that was out here because of non-payment. So we'll take a quick look at it. Alright, so it looks like it's a 73, and looks like it's been stored outside. Unfortunately, it hasn't been stored inside, so it's very wet on the inside and very musty. Bit of a lake in the footwells in the rear and the front. And we're trying to see if we can open the bonnet up, and then we give that a shot. There's the biggest problem with it. No V8. So that's a problem. No engine or trans, and they still want $2,000 for it. So this is a definite pass, I would say. Les, what do you think?
Want to put a different V8 in it?
Yeah, let's put an LS1 in it.
That would work.
Yeah, I would say pass. Although the body doesn't look to be too bad. I don't know what the frame would look like, but
if anybody's restoring one, it's a good example of solid body shells.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Not rotted through.
No. All right. Let's have a look at the old MG while we're here. Wow. Another project. This one again looks like it's been stored outside, unfortunately. And these had wood floors in them, I believe. So it says TF Lotus on it. So, not sure what that means. It would be a fun project to restore. Got some cool lines on it. No idea what year this would be. I'm not an MG guy. Let me see if it's got an engine in it. Les doesn't want me to say anything about this. It's a Lotus twin cam running side draft or Weber DCOEs. Unbelievable. That's kind of cool. Thus the TF Lotus badge on it. So yeah, that's kind of interesting anyway. That would be probably a little more fun than the less stock engine.